It's 28 minutes to 8. Still to come this morning, are humanists less likely to get divorced than religious people? For weeks now, there have been protests at Parkfield Community School in Birmingham because some parents there are unhappy about lessons covering issues including LGBT rights. This week, another rally was held outside the school, with the speaker addressing a crowd from the back of a lorry.
We need to have a conversation about what is going on in this country.
We don't have an issue with them learning that, yes, you will come across same-sex couples. What we have a problem is with his promoting of homosexuality, and that is what he is doing.
You are not a boy, you may be a girl. If you're a girl, you may be a boy. This is extremely dangerous. Whilst, as I've said, we are not against people of that community.
If this issue isn't resolved and if they don't come, to some sort of an agreement, then I believe a lot of the children will stop going to school completely.
One of the parents there from Parkfield School sharing her concerns. We're joined by Amanda Speilman, Chief Inspector at Ofsted. Amanda, good morning to you.
Good morning.
What's your reaction, first of all, when you see parents protesting outside of school, withdrawing their children from classes sometimes, refusing to attend certain lessons, and indeed this kind of rally outside this school, which got a lot of coverage across social media this week, which many people regarded as homophobic and a form of hate speech?
Well, the first thing is, is to think how deeply distressing this must be for the children at the school. What an extraordinary thing to see this kind of contention and unhappiness at the gates of your own school, somewhere that you think of as somewhere safe, enjoyable, calm. And I think it reflects the difficulty that we have talking about this subject sort of calmly, carefully, in a way that helps people take things forward. When agitators, when big national campaign groups get involved, it generally doesn't lead to that kind of conversation.
There's a bit of squaring of the circle to be done here, isn't there? Because you want to encourage reflection within schools about different kinds of families and different kinds of relationships, and yet you also want to allow parents and indeed schools to maintain a distinctive faith perspective. And sometimes that faith perspective, not always, but sometimes that faith perspective on relationships can lead to a strong opposition to same-sex relationships. How do you square that circle?
Yes. Now, you said you want to. I have to be really clear here. Ofsted is not an organisation with desires of its own. We are the National Inspectorate of Schools.
You have ambitions for education, surely.
We report on standards of education, and we have some very clear requirements around equalities, around preparing children for life in modern Britain, and we have a legal framework which does set up both protection for belief and protection for LGBT and other protected characteristics. And there is no question that these can and are sometimes in tension. And what I'm very much arguing for is for people who are particularly interested in each of these rights to recognise that there is a degree of tension, and that requires honest, balanced discussion to say what is the best way to reconcile these difficulties. And the vast majority of faith schools in this country manage to do that. Faith schools of every persuasion.
Though the school we're talking about in this case, Parkfield, is not a faith school. It's an academy.
Happens, yes, it's a community. It's an academy.
It's an academy school,
but with a heavily Muslim intake, and in some respects,
so you can say this is a tension.
Yes.
But that doesn't get us out of the difficulty, the dilemma of the diversity question here.
It is a dilemma, and yet it's a very limited expectation that the law and Department of Education guidance put on schools, just to make children aware of the range of family possibilities. This is absolutely not a requirement to promote, to provide sex education to young children. We need to make sure that this doesn't get amplified into something that it isn't.
And of course, this is not just an issue for Muslim parents. Orthodox Jews have said they will homeschool their children rather than allowing them to attend sex education classes. What's your response to that?
Well, again, you use the phrase sex education classes. We're talking here, especially in the context of younger children, about relationship education, about something that doesn't necessarily go any further than saying there are some families with two mummies and two daddies. That's it. So calling it sex education really is... it's designed to escalate.
Though, for many of these parents, it is the sexual content that is the issue for them.
Well, there is no requirement for sex education for primary-aged children. So there's a confusion here. It is relationships education for younger children at primary school. Sex and relationships education only applies in secondary school. And there is an overriding requirement to be age-appropriate and to have regard to children's faith backgrounds.
Homeschooling is an option for some people, is it?
This country has a very permissive regime. Anybody can choose to educate their children at home. There is a requirement on parents to have their children educated, but they are free to choose how that happens.
And then you need to ensure that children are being taught to respect people and people's lifestyles and choices.
Yes,
how do you do that within the context of homeschooling? There
is no scrutiny of homeschooling in this country. Again, in many countries it's pretty tightly regulated. In this country, there is no scrutiny.
When Ofsted enforced the government's guidance on relationships and sex education, do you risk the potential of ghettoisation of some conservative religious communities who will simply just refuse to comply?
Well, we have to inspect and report, and we are reporting fairly honestly. We are talking about a very small number of schools that have difficulties here, and I think that's important for people to understand. It can be reported as though this is half the schools in the country in turmoil.
Sure.
It's not. It's a bit more than a handful, but not a lot. So we spend a great deal of time working with faith groups in all communities, because what you said is right. This is not an issue that's specific to one particular faith group. It tends to be the most conservative sections of a number of different religions, and we do our best to engage honestly, constructively, and do everything that we can to help them find the most straightforward path to that basic compliance with the law. But I do believe there is a moral case here as well. Children, typically while they're still children, who are gay, for example, do typically start to realise this sometime in the middle of their school lives, can be still at primary school, just knowing just enough to know that they're not alone, they're not bad, they're not ill. That's the level that we're talking about, is making sure that no child grows up with a great burden of guilt and shame about just being who they are.
Amanda, thank you very much.